Welcome, everybody, to WMMA Math Podcast brought to you by WombatSports.com. I am Mark with the Q. I'm your host. This is going to be a very interesting interview. Had an interview done before, but something happened with the file, so we're redoing it. But the cool thing about this time around is the fact that I have a huge announcement. The documentary Girls Grappling and Grit, we brought that to Artemis Film Festival last year. And now we're finally going to be releasing it this week. The hope is to kind of get some rentals going on with it. My goal right now is to get at least 1,200 people to watch it. And the thing with the documentaries is that once we hit 1,000, because when you hit 1,000, I'll probably pretty much make what I've did and kind of investing into the documentary. And then anything after that will be part of the proceeds will be donated to Wrestle Like a Girl, and also Beat the Streets, which were featured in the documentary project as well. Joining me right now is a really talented fighter and boxer. She's going to hopefully have a fight in July if things go right. And Talia's on with us right now. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, and that's so awesome that you just were able to put that out. It was very well done, and the fact that you would be able to donate to them these great causes, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it was an interesting kind of ride for those of you who don't know about the documentary at all, but, I do have an article right on the front page on the very, very top that kind of explains a little bit of things. But It took me exactly a year to get everything done, which was an interesting year in itself. A lot of stuff happened between when I started the documentary and when I was finally finished shooting with my last interview. Things were kind of chaotic, and really, to tell you the truth, I had to go back this past week to update a lot of the information because a lot of things happened in the past year or so in terms of where the sport has grown as well. Now, I know you came from a boxing background, but just kind of seeing how the growth of women's wrestling and watching the doc at all. I mean, tell me a little bit about kind of your opinion and what you kind of think of how how the future is. I mean, I kind of put it in the fact that there's quite a few girls in the documentary that said they want to make that transition over to mixed martial arts. But tell me a little bit some of your quick thoughts about the documentary. You got to be able to see a preview copy of it. I mean, kind of tell me some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it was great. Being able to hear all those different girls and all their stories was really intriguing. It just is so fascinating to me when I find out people's stories and why they're doing what they're doing and the different experiences they've had to go through being a female in these male-oriented sports. And you have the female coaches as well, which I love seeing that. I think that is so empowering, and they said, we do need the male coaches. We need your guys' help with this sport to really push it and to take it where it really could go. But I think it's so empowering to have those female coaches, and that was really cool just to hear their perspective on things and how they're coaching the girls, and the fact that they're setting these examples, even with the alumni coming back and all that. That was really admirable to see. When I started at the gym, I was one other girl. There were two girls, and that was it, So we were used to having to go with the boys, and when I started competing, it was so hard to find anyone to match up with me, just whether it be weight or experience. So I had to go through quite a lot. I was sparring with a lot of women that were more advanced than me in the beginning because that's just all that was available. So it was really cool, again, seeing what they've gone through and to hear these girls now starting so young. I started at about 14 and a half, maybe 15, and to hear their stories. Some started about that, maybe middle school, high school, but now, because this is getting so popular for girls, especially the fighting, these girls are starting, young, 6, below 6, and I think that is definitely what's going to be changing the direction that this kind of sport is going to take. Just instead of us trying to hop on this, onto this train, we're now leading this, these trains down the tracks and all that. So I think it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, I was talking to Laura Senko about this a couple weeks ago when we were kind of going down the stats. The fact that, these girls are, back in the day. I mean, the average woman getting into the mixed martial arts realm was maybe 21, 22, maybe. But we've seen over the past couple years that age has been growing. That's been going down and down and down because some of these girls are seeing the fact that this is a possibility for them to do a sport like this, and make a decent living at it, at least make a career out of it. So these girls are starting younger and younger and younger, and it used to be the gateway was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's unique because I've known Courtney, who was in the documentary. I've known her since she was 11 or 12. And she was at the second G Fight Summit. And I saw her as a very young girl, training, wanting to be a professional mixed martial artist and all that as well. And a lot of these girls are seeing gateway into wrestling as a way to hone and sharpen their skills to make that transition over. And that's, I think, at least good part of the reason why this is, becoming a more popular sport. Not to mention there's other contributing factors. It just seems like the popularity has grown so much over the past couple years. So it's just about absolutely amazing to be able to see some of these girls, be the future of what's been going on. I think the reason why they decided to go in this route was the fact I wanted to see where the future held in terms of the women's divisions of mixed martial arts. And, just kind of going into, the wrestling portion of it, it just seems like that's where we're going to be heading in the next maybe 5 or 6 years. Well, we'll see some of these girls, from wrestling make their way over into the realm, which will be interesting to see how, a lot of them are still preparing, just outside the mats. I mean, they'll do the wrestling season and then they'll still train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or train their striking, during the summer or during off season. And then, they really are kind of concentrating and making themselves really well-rounded. So it's going to be interesting to say the least. And I told this to Laura Sanko. I said, this is going to be the future of what's going to go on. And these girls are going to take it to a new level once they get to that point where they want to become professional fighters. So it's kind of interesting to say the least to be able to see how everything kind of goes. So, it's great to be able to do that as well. Let's
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just commenting on the fact that they can do this because of having women to look up to, and I think that is such an important part of it too.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of an irony to this in the fact that the person that kind of, propelled this a lot is Rhonda. Rhonda did a lot in terms of marketing, but she comes from a judo background. She didn't come from a wrestling background. So it's kind of an interesting, thing where, a judo gal was the one that kind of pushed a lot of these girls to want to go into wrestling, which is kind of odd and when you say it, but that's just the way it ended up. Everything kind of ended up being. But there's quite a few people. Jess Philippus, who was in the documentary. She actually, she fought for Invicta. Now she's concentrating on more of a wrestling career and becoming a coach as well. Daniel Biku, who had a couple of fights, very, very well. I think she retired. Kyra Batara was also featured in the documentary as well. Fought for quite a few promotions. I think she's not doing MMA anymore. I think she's now doing professional wrestling. At least she's starting to train that. But quite a few MMA fighters that you guys will recognize in the documentary as well. So yeah, definitely. I will. If you go to wombatsports.com, I'll have all that information posted up where you guys can watch it. It's a really good 55-minute documentary about where the future holds with it, and I hope a lot of people will come and watch it. It's just a very informative and really fun to be able to listen to some of these stories about how these girls ended up making their way into mixed martial into wrestling, and how the sport is progressing and what the sport's giving back actually to a lot of these women. So it's really great to be able to see that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's kind of change gears here and talk to you a little bit. Now you originally trained trained in San Diego and the Orange County area. You came in through boxing and Muay Thai. You wound up doing some training in terms of striking up in Orange County. Some of your your ground game came from our friends over at the 10th Planet down in San Diego as well. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say the least. I mean, how was the commute between the two kind of situation? And it was a really exciting time for you, obviously, to be able to make that transition over to mixed martial arts.
Yeah, it really was. I have always, anytime I've done one of the sports, whether it was Muay Thai or boxing, I fall in love with it. And that's what happened with jiu-jitsu. And so being able to put it all together was perfect. And being in Orange County, it was kind of worked out because I was in the middle of both LA and San Diego. And LA, I had boxing and Muay Thai up there, and down in San Diego, I had jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai as well. So I got to have some great experiences at these awesome gyms with people and learn some really good stuff. But I think it was just, I wanted one place to be able to put it all together and to really hone in on MMA and specifically putting all my skills together. And that's what basically landed me at Jackson-Wink. I used to watch a lot of those getting ready for the fights, basically the little documentaries on the fighters that were on UFC Fight Pass and stuff, and it was so cool to watch these people out at Jackson's, and they were training Michelle Hawley, everybody was getting ready, and we kind of were just like, well, why don't I go out there for a bit, see how it is? If I don't like it, then that's fine. I can come back to California. I got plenty of options here. But I ended up really enjoying it and meeting some of my people, and I was able to put everything together. So being out in Albuquerque has really progressed my MMA game to a whole different level. And that's exactly what I wanted to experience and to test with people out here on this level. So it's been very confirming, at least, of what I'm doing and that I'm learning and progressing. And, I'm so close. I cannot wait to make this debut and show people who I am, and I'm ready to kind of take scene by storm, I guess you could say. So just bring a different, another look into this sport, showing that there's so much more to us as fighters, especially as women fighters.
Yeah, kind of heartbreaking. Michelle lost that decision. A lot of people thought that she won it, but I mean, that's how kind of MMA goes sometimes. Especially, it was kind of weird in the fact that after the fight, Carla had actually said that since there's no fans there, she could hear the commentators, and I guess DC was saying something about how she needed to do something, and Carla ended up picking that up during the fight. Yeah. So it was a very unusual situation where you could kind of hear, you could kind of hear everybody in the arena, as it were. So I think it's an interesting factor on that as well. Like I said before, when you go to an Invicta, it's very different than when you go to a UFC fight. I don't know if you've ever been to a live Invicta.
Yes,
but
I have, yeah.
And, I think the fans there are very, very invested in what's going on in the fight, so they won't necessarily cheer very, very loud, depending.
Very focused, very respectful.
Yeah, they're very respectful. So, you will once in a while just be able to hear, the coaches, yell at their fighters, which I find very, very interesting. And now you're starting to get that with UFC since there's no crowds. So it's like, it's kind of interesting to say the least in terms of how everything kind of fleshed out as well, in terms of the fight as well. So it was interesting to say the least. But we'll see how far this kind of goes until things kind of work their way out in terms of what's going on in terms of the crowds and all that as well. So we'll have to see what kind of goes on from there. Yeah, you know, I think last time we talked, which I guess